The ESRB does not consider loot boxes to be a form of gambling. Welcome to another episode of Smash JT, guys, and I gotta talk about this and dissect it a little bit because, to be honest, when I first heard about this, it smelled extremely fishy, and the more I'm digging into it, the more I'm realizing that this is gonna turn into a gigantic issue.
He's basically the shopkeeper of the market, so he's going to be the guy that's going to do all these lovely deals.
We want to actually buy some of these loot chests that you guys can get.
Conversations regarding microtransactions in video games, especially the AAA ones recently with loot boxes, are nothing new to people. But recently, Kotaku actually reached out to the ESRB and asked them for some sort of confirmation on what's going on with loot boxes and their stance on the gambling with it. The ESRB replied in an email to Kotaku stating, "The ESRB does not consider loot boxes to be gambling. While there's an element of chance in these mechanics, the player is always guaranteed to receive in-game content, even if the player unfortunately receives something they don't want. We think of it as a similar principle to collectible card games. Sometimes you'll open a pack and get a brand new holographic card you've had your eye on for a while, but other times you'll end up with a pack of cards you already have." There are a number of reasons why this strikes me as extremely fishy. First off, why is the ESRB even caring to reply to Kotaku about gambling in video games when this is something they're supposed to self-regulate and handle on their own? Yet, when Kotaku sends them a message saying, "What do you guys plan on doing with this?" they quickly brush it away like, "Oh, we looked into that and it's no big deal because it's just like collecting baseball cards or trading cards." And even more importantly, when discussing gambling, according to the ESRB's actual definition of gambling, real gambling is any sort of wagering involving real cash, while simulating gambling means the player can gamble without betting or wagering real cash or currency. The spokesperson also added to Kotaku that any game with real gambling will always receive the adults only rating, which would be poisonous for big publishers, as most big box retailers will not sell adult-only games. So while the ESRB is a non-profit, self-regulatory industry that rates these games for these publishers, they also have to consider that the publishers need to be able to sell these games to be able to pay the ESRB to rate these games for them in the future. So the ESRB is kind of dependent on these publishers being successful for their own success. As always, looking into this further opened up quite the rabbit hole of information. First off, the president and CEO of the ESRB currently is Patricia Vance. She took over the ESRB in 2002. Look, while Patricia Vance was working at the Walt Disney Company for 18 years prior to becoming the CEO and president of the ESRB, she was responsible for the development of a broad range of new media and marketing materials for the entire Disney organization, going over a whole spectrum of different products, mostly dealing with the entertainment area at abc.com. Now follow me, because on May 6, 2013, EA and Disney signed an exclusive deal for the rights to Star Wars games. And the reason why that's important is because Patricia Vance, prior to being the CEO of the ESRB, worked 18 years at Disney, who owns these rights to the Star Wars games. So you can't tell me she has zero connection to this deal being signed with EA, even though it was about 10 years later. She worked 18 years at Disney. She's had connections at Disney, and I'm sure she still does now. I'm not saying she directly did something, but there's certainly some questions around this whole situation that just doesn't smell right when you put it all together. Patricia worked at Disney, then she worked at ESRB. Disney signs a deal with EA. EA does microtransactions and loot boxes with the upcoming Star Wars games. Kotaku sends an email to the ESRB saying, "Hey, this Star Wars Battlefront 2 is bringing up a lot of questions about microtransactions and gambling. Do you guys care to comment on these accusations about gambling within the game with microtransactions and loot crates?" "No, we don't really need to comment on it. We've already said that the gambling is not an issue because it's not really gambling. It's just buying baseball cards. You know, like kids used to buy baseball cards back in the day and play with them. It's the same thing, right?" And while I'm not directly accusing Patricia Vance, the CEO of the ESRB, of doing anything malicious with the ESRB in connection with this gambling thing, I'm just saying that there's something off about it. When I'm doing the research, it doesn't add up. It's my firm belief that if the ESRB was a truly independent regulatory commission of the video game industry, then this would not be okay. The gambling loot crates would automatically receive a mature rating or an adults only rating, because these things are literally no different than going to a casino and pulling the slot machine and hoping that you win something. It's an addictive thing. People get addicted to these things and they don't know how to stop. It's that one more try and maybe I'll get what I want. One more pull of this slot machine arm and maybe I'll win this time. Or one more roll of the dice. I gotta get it this time. That's the same thing with these loot crates. And on top of all this, something I haven't even mentioned is it's not regulated to the point of we don't know if these game companies are able to individualize the gambling mechanics on a user basis. Meaning if there's a player that's showing signs of having that addictive gambling personality, the game company can just make more offers to that person saying, hey, we noticed that you bought this earlier. Why not try again now? We have a sale going on. And it might hone in and try to exploit those people that don't know any better. This is exactly the reason the ESRB was put together, because they were trying to avoid government intervention. And by using this as an example, saying there's nothing to see here, everything's fine, everything's just peachy, they're gonna cause a gigantic issue with the government eventually coming down on the entire industry, which is good for nobody. It's not good for the gamers, it's not good for the companies, it's not good for anybody. This is a catastrophic avalanche starting to happen right now, and there's nobody there to stop it. I'm looking at the mountain crumbling and just saying, man, we're screwed. Here's the point of me bringing all this to you right now. There's a gigantic conflict of interest between the ESRB and all these game companies that pay them to make these games rated. And while the ESRB is a non-profit, self-regulatory industry, it was founded by Nintendo, Sega, Acclaim, and you guessed it, Electronic Arts, EA. The same people making Battlefront 2 that are in the news for loot crates and being gambling issues and all this other stuff are the same people that founded the ESRB that's now saying that it's not gambling. Does anyone else see the obvious implications of these two entities being tied to each other? Is it just me? Am I going crazy? Please tell me there's other people that see this connection. And the reason why I'm getting so fired up about this is because the ESRB, you guys know better. You know this is gambling. And you're saying it's like baseball cards because you get something? No, you don't. Sometimes you get stickers. Sometimes you get duplicates. Sometimes you get things that you don't want. But with baseball cards, you can trade them away. With loot crates, you sign a EULA, and it's a digital item that's worthless. So don't tell me it's the same thing, because you know damn well that it's not. I know the government is going to eventually step in when some parent of some kid spends way too much money on a loot crate, and then the government comes in and has to regulate the entire industry because you guys are in cahoots with each other trying to save money and make billions of dollars off of people who can't stop themselves from spending money on these loot crates. That is why this is a huge deal right now, and this is the turning point of a major catastrophe that's about to happen in the game industry. And if you can't see it happening, it's because you're too greedy. Sorry I'm getting so fired up about this. It's just these companies can't see the forest for the trees. They can't see beyond their own nose when it comes to making money. They just want to make money. They don't care about the individuals. They don't care about the community. They don't care about the industry as a whole. They just care about making money, especially the public companies, these AAA publishers that care about the shareholders and how much profit they can make. That's all they care about. I've talked about this a bunch of times before, and you guys have to realize they don't care about you. They care about making money off of you. They don't even care about if you like the game or not. They just want to make sure that you buy stuff in the games. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this issue. Do you feel like the ESRB should step in and do something? Make these games rated mature so that kids can't participate in the gambling aspect of it? Or do you feel like it's fine and that people should be able to make up their own mind and that the ESRB is actually in the right? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.